So it's Halloween month, our favorite month I think, and so obviously this gives us extra reason to play and talk about spooky shit. So we decided to do a little something about Bloodborne, one of our favorite games. Oh, and the little is a double entendre. The reason we made this channel wasn't just to reflect on a bunch of our lived experiences at once while analyzing video games, or to unite communities we would like to foster solidarity with, but also to not have to walk on eggshells about the stuff that rubs up against ageplay, ADBL, baby fur, or any other part of that tree. So, Bloodborne in particular had been burning a hole in our brain pocket for a while. Why? Because it curiously makes us think of infantilization. It was just one thing at first, but then I started looking for it, and it was really easy to make a whole reading. So, there's gonna be an infantilist analysis of Bloodborne? Wild. Oh yeah, this video is gonna get a little lewd, as we'll be mentioning furry kink art in general, and showing examples. Nothing too spicy. It's relevant, I swear. Don't click away! This was supposed to be a fluff bit, but once we actually put this stuff on paper, we saw it was fairly dense. But then we thought it better to keep it a fluff bit so we didn't overexpand, or at the very least, not try to explain all the plot or surrounding lore like we tend to do in our essays. So, without knowledge of Bloodborne, you can still enjoy this video, but if you like the context and want to know more about Bloodborne for either understanding or read better, or just because it's so damn neat, we'll have a few Bloodborne lore resources down in the oopsie daisy. Some video essays, some not. From the lore finders to the regular player base, I'm telling you, the Bloodborne fan community is heckin' great, and typically wholesome and nice. Bloodborne is just like the Dark Souls games in that they leave the player to piece together the plot and whatnot. However, the Bloodborne lore community is amazingly thorough and has very deep analysis. And if you came here because you're a big Bloodborne lore lover, please let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Oh, good hunter.
So yeah, with these things in mind, you too can have an infantilist experience of Bloodborne, if you so wish. Hey, gotta make the game more adorable somehow. It's really scary. However, you can read kink and kink-related things in a lot of horror stuff, so in retrospect, it shouldn't have surprised us very much in the least. I mean, the whole turning into a beast thing is just slow burn transformation kink. The little bit of cloth left on the gangly werewolves? Oh my dog! I could throw a dart on a board of furry art and hit that blindfolded. Bloodborne itself leverages the small detail as subtle world building and a horrific discovery, but you don't have to exclusively read it that way. See how easy that was? Okay, it was easy for me in this moment, but furry transformation art used to scare me. The loss of humanity, motor functions, and sometimes intelligence was a terrible trifecta of components. And some of this art made is very uneasy, especially as someone who values their smarts and opposable thumbs. It's hard to play video games with paws after all. Success to say, it was quite a distressing mood. Now though, I'll spare you the emotional journey, but reminding ourselves its fantasy seems to help a lot. You can always pull out. So now it's hot? Or at the very least, a neat concept? I don't know if things can be hot. But another big factor is intelligence loss, because that's like a whole thing by itself, but the appeal of being a baby can... The appeal of being a baby can be not just the fact that you don't need that overstressed adult brain anymore, more trouble than it's worth sometimes to be honest, but also you can be clumsy, you can fumble, you can over-emote. You know, basically you just become a Twitch streamer. So, if the beast blood that infects all of Gehrman turns folks into beasts over time, and you had a blood transfusion which expressly gives you the power to fight beasts, not unlike the girls of Claymore, it's safe to say, eventually you too will become a beast. This again is used for great effect in the horror, especially because it lets the player draw their own conclusions instead of printing a beast.exe installing sign on the player character's back. To add to that realization, there's also the fact that the blood vials that you mine from enemies diegetically on them in the first place because before Bloodborne starts, the beast blood, or at the time, healing blood, was the best drug in Gehrman. It was distributed by the Healing Church, which is basically Gehrman's government. Yikes. So, having blood on you would likely be the equivalent of having a bottle of ibuprofen on you. Well, if ibuprofen can heal everything from cuts to scrapes to terminal illnesses. I mean shit, Gehrman might even put blood in their liquor. They love getting blood drunk. It's their culture. So thinking along those lines and the fact that once you get some insight, the slow burn of becoming equally like those you hunt is hard to ignore. I mean your insight as a player, not the insight that you get as a currency of arcane knowledge. Although you're blessed or cursed with the knowledge of what you're becoming, you have no way to stop it. So seeing the variations of beasts that hunters get to become while you're on your journey is a great preview for what you'll become, as hunters become the most grotesque beasts. See, you're special! You know how you're special? A doll talks to you, and she speaks so pleasantly.
I am a doll, here in this dream to look after you. Honorable hunter, pursue the echoes of blood, and I will channel them into your strength. You will hunt beasts, and I will be here for you to embolden your sickly spirit.
First-time players will likely get their first conversation with a plain doll after they lose their first boss fight, alleviating your perhaps bruised ego, or, in some people's cases, soothing a tantrum. It's great game design. However, another layer of your interactions with the doll reinforces the dynamic of dependence on her, as she is basically the only one who's nice to you.
What are you still doing here? Enough trembling in your boots. A hunter must hunt.
Or at the very least, she's the nicest to you. Actually, it's like being a baby and then nearly every... Actually, it's kind of like being an adult baby, and then nearly every non-hunter who isn't hostile to your hunter outside of the hunter's dream is someone who sees you as a protector, an authority of what's happening in Yharnam. But players on first blush barely know more than the average NPC. They're a baby hunter, a rookie. They look like big tough hunter, but they're really just soft on the inside. And as one, you are as of yet the only unaligned hunter, as every hunter you talk to in the waking world is or was in a guild, and are an expert on the hunt, at least from your fledgling perspective. And most even talk down to you. But the doll is typically calm and seems at ease with every change to the world, and she has the most consistent dialogue changes of any other NPC in the game, and so she offers exposition about the scary world you've been thrust into, feeding you breadcrumbs of knowledge. And her dialogue changes most of the time according to the progress that you make. You don't even have to tell her what you've been doing. When you talk to her, she just knows, making her very much like a mom to you. A motherly figure, yes. And that can be rather comforting. She even mourns the loss of the last hunter you played with when you beat the game and start a new journey. She really cares about you, just because you're you. Even if it is a dream, it's a dream you feel welcome in. A likely unintended consequence of the fact that you have to go to the hub world of the hunter's dream if you want to teleport to any other area of the game via lantern, which means you see her constantly, and even if you mostly ignore her, she's just patient, always there to comfort you, uwu, if and when you need it. Unless you're doing a challenge run, you'll likely go to her often as she gives you access to leveling up, and that makes you pretty much dependent on her within the mechanics of the game, not just through the story. Unlike most RPGs, you have complete control of the stats you increase upon level up. You get 1 point to an attribute per level up. Considering the framing is her basically holding your hand and touching you in a way no other character can, the action is incredibly intimate.
Let the echoes become your strength. Let me stand close. Now shut your eyes.
It is also very easy to see the exchange as you telling her which stats you want to improve, each individual one. And although in the early game you'll be jumping several levels in one handhold with her, the farther you get, the less points you get to add, making the time you spend with her happen less and less, as you get less and less dependent on her, and more reliant on your own abilities and knowledge of the game. Which kind of makes late game level ups kind of nostalgic, as it's something you used to do all the time, but now you barely do it all. You're learning to stand on your own 2 feet with her help, but even when you don't need it anymore, she'll still be there. All this stands in juxtaposition of the player's relationship with Gehrman. Gehrman isn't hostile, besides the fact that he's the final boss. He's a very important source of lore and information, but he ultimately doesn't want you questioning your purpose.
Welcome to the hunter's dream. This will be your home. For now, I am... Gehrman. Friend to you hunters. You're sure to be in a fine haze about now, but don't think too hard about all of this. Just go out and kill a few beasts. It's for your own good. You know, it's just what hunters do. You'll get used to it.
And on top of that, he's kind of a dirty old man. A corrupted father figure of sorts, and upon the doll's first time being animate in front of you, encourages you to be sexual towards her.
This was once a safe haven for hunters. A workshop where hunters used blood to enhance their weapons. And flesh. We don't have as many tools as we once did, but you're welcome to use whatever you find. Even the doll. Should it please you.
Which only gets creepier from the context that the doll and Gehrman never interact. Or worse, the Gehrman modeled the original doll after his first hunter student, Lady Maria, who you can tell very much is like the doll in the perception Lady Maria's patients had of her in the DLC. A saint that makes the scary world better, a soothing voice in the dark, something the player can likely relate to.
Farewell, good hunter. May you find your worth in the waking world.
Anywho, the next piece of infantalization inside of Bloodborne, and the spark that inspired us to make this very video, which we wanted to make before we even made video essays, was a post on a Bloodborne forum back in 2015. theory crafting about something Miyazaki, the director of Bloodborne, said about our favorite boss, Rom the Vacuous Spider. Rom is a girl? And speculation a baby? From the collector's guide, Miyazaki was asked what was his favorite boss in Bloodborne. He answered this: I really like her, Rom. There is some oddly cute aspects to her moves and modeling. Also, I have reason to think that Rom is actually a baby. I highly suspect that the title Rom the Vacuous Spider is not literal, but metaphorical, because Rom does not resemble a spider at all, but she is protected by spider minions. The spider symbol represents mystery and growth. Why exactly is she labeled as the Vacuous Spider? Vacuous means lack of thought. Well, what type of creature requires protection of others, has lack of thought, doesn't pose any harm unless aggravated and helplessly defends itself? The answer is a baby. A baby lacks thought, is innocent, and requires protection. Perhaps Rom has not yet achieved her final form? Also, Rom looks more like a caterpillar than a spider. We all know caterpillars eventually transform into a butterfly. Well, most of the time if it doesn't die. Hunter kills Rom. And the one difference between our read and the read of this person is that we don't think Rom was a baby when they became an Eldritch Horror. I think the lack of thought, the vacuousness, was part of the transformation. I think Rom was a scholar or a student at the College of Byrgenwerth. The Lake of Byrgenwerth is where you fight her, which happens to be the place filled with monsters that wear gowns from the college. These monsters aren't helpless at all. However, they are insect-like, just like Rom, and are filled with eyes, just like Rom. And, as we all know, Byrgenwerth scholars tried to transcend to the level of the Great Ones by lining their brains with eyes. Eyes in Bloodborne symbolize knowledge, but since the player character can ascend to a natural Great One without the use of eyes, we know the Byrgenwerth scholars were wrong. Although, Rom is definitely a higher being, she is kin opposed to a true Great One. Although the distinction isn't super clear, true Great Ones are definitely not vacuous in thought. If anything, they make the smartest of humans seem like babies by comparison. Kin definitely don't have machinations of their own, and are typically created or controlled by humans. But true Great Ones typically have control over the world in a way humans can never even fathom. Unfortunately, kin are those which emulate the power of the Great Ones, but with a lack of cognitive thought to use it. Eldritchly mentally regressed, or eldritchly bimbofied. Both valid reads. After all, a human transforming into any sort of beast in Bloodborne, even one of the celestial variety, means they tend to lose intelligence. Just the thought of spiders being Rom's army of caretakers and her summoning meteorites to defensively stop you from killing her being a tantrum is so heckin' cute. And if you're apprehensive about Rom's status of being an eldritchly transformed infantilized baby, I will direct you to the last part of our analysis. Bloodborne's good ending? There have been many a YouTuber with an opinion about Bloodborne's potential messaging concerning the hardest to get and technically most positive ending. We will link a few in the description, but long story short, Gehrman, the first hunter at the end of the game, gives you a choice: to be killed in the hunter's dream and lose your memories of the hunt, returning to your normal world, unburdened with the knowledge that humanity is doomed, or to fight him. If you choose to fight him, and ingest 3 of the 4 umbilical cords you can happen upon along the course of the game before you do defeat him, you get the true final boss fight, Flora, the moon presence. Upon defeat, after having made special contact with you before the battle, the hunter finally incurs their own transformation. And you guessed it, you special little hunter, you. Or should we say, you adorable baby. You're much too little for hunting now. You're now an infant Great One. And maybe because we're such a horror adorable loving scamp, and instead of the awkward or disgusted reactions many folks have of this moment, we were kind of endeared. Many very valid takes mention that this slimy squid bab of a Great One alienates the player from the player character, just as the human race will be alienated from the creature. Its thematic weight is definitely uneasy and very at home in the cosmic horror genre. But apparently, cosmic transformation and infantilization is really appealing to us. I'm sure being a furry factors into that fascination with the squid baby, so in our case, seeing this ending doesn't make us as uneasy as most. And of course, our mommy, your mommy, the plain doll, instinctively scoops you up. Seems now Rom was foreshadowing, and unlike Rom, the player being a squid kid suggests that they'll grow into an adult Great One. Well, maybe. And this, funnily enough, leads to a very interesting read of the doll. What if she did this on purpose? What if this is what she wanted all along? Not only has she cared for us this entire time, which has been especially helpful not just for the player, but for the player character, as our hunter after the initial blood transfusion that led us down this path stripped us of our pre-transfusion memories, and it seeps into the player's experience of her even further. We neglected to mention that you can emote at the doll and that there are a number of emotes that she'll respond to. If you bow at her, she bows back. Most other emotes get a quizzical head tilt. And for a few emotes, she claps. A happy, encouraging clap, just like you do when you're proud of your little one. You can learn this through experimentation or just finding out through the community. But either way, if you do it often, you're kind of sinking into that dynamic with the doll even further. When things get hard, she's not just a means for you to level up or understand the world more, but to get comfort and attention. You can play with her. Even if being much baby isn't a pursuit of yours, you have to admit, it's nice to get attention, affection without exception, even in a game. But let me peek back at the Miyazaki interview because incidentally, on the same page as the ROM conversation, I don't know where that came from. In the world of Bloodborne, babies that are treated as special, in one way or the other, are offered as lures to the Great Ones. The Great Ones have all lost their children because of their positions, and as a result, they're attracted to these special babies. The babies are one way of calling them. This story setup was something I came up with pretty readily in my mind. When it comes to living creatures, the stronger and more advanced you are, the fewer offspring you produce in your life. Even with human beings, the birth rates in more advanced countries lower, right? Looking back, I wonder if facts like this were the root of the idea. And keeping that in mind, we'll of course mention that the plain doll bleeds white. Many speculate that the doll is a Great One, or at the very least, more than what she seems, and her greatest priority is the player throughout the game, and it kind of makes sense in that context that she would lead you to this. After all, she wants you to be safe. Losing all your insight and memories of the hunt in the ending where you return to a normal life is out. And if she wants you to be happy, the other ending where you replace Gehrman and are trapped in the dream is also out, as he considers releasing a hunter from the dream a mercy. He even has rare dialogue where he sleeps and dreams of begging his past friends to release him from the dream.
Oh, Lawrence, Master Willem, somebody help me, unshackle me, please, anybody. I've had enough of this dream. The night blocks all sight. Oh, somebody, please.
So that kinda sucks. And even as the dream's overseer, the doll cares for you in that ending too. And so she wants you to be safe and happy, transforming you into a Great One is the only way. And considering the player's growing dependence on her throughout the game, it's hard to believe there's no correlation, especially when you consider the motherly framing that the doll gets. After all, she's basically treating you the same as when you were human, just more intensely. You've been spared from a horrible fate, and to add cuddles to puddles, it's an odd mirror to your first conversation with her. The first time you spoke to her was after you likely suffered a horrible death from a boss's hands. And in the good ending when she scoops you up, it's immediately after you've defeated 2 unimaginable threats in a row. The little hunter fall boy for you, woo. They deserve a rest for being so big for so long. And so the fear the hunter and the player had of becoming like those they hunt is realized and avoided all at once. I guess it really is the good ending. And you're not some beast roaming around for endless prey, or a deranged hunter in a nightmare, or even like Lawrence, a smart beast suffering in his own hell. You're a baby Great One with a mommy who loves you no matter what you look like, even if you're squishy and wiggly. And I'm sure you'll grow up one day, but let's wait a few thousand years before we start potty training. Hi there everybody, new and old alike. I didn't give a proper introduction at the top of the video for folks who are used to our content. I'm Drizzlebyte, and I use she and they pronouns, though I lean more she. Anywho, we'd like to thank our wonderful patrons for making this video much more possible. Jamie J, 12 Face Productions, Valued Customer, and Sammy. If you want to join this wonderful cohort of folks that support us and get your name at the end of videos too, then you can become one of our patrons. This video took a lot longer than we meant it to. However, this video is a long time coming when we used to dream about doing video essays instead of actually, doing them. We're gonna be hitting the ground running for the rest of October though, even though we hadn't really posted much this month so far. Our Deltarune video is supposed to be on Halloween, and because there's a very special video that's supposed to go along with that, because we stream on Hi there everybody. Had to put that bab down for a nap before she spilled the beans too much. Eldritch Abomination lullabies get her every time. However, I do want to let y'all know that we are going to be a VTuber soon. Halloween we'll have our first VTubing stream, so that's our debut. Halloween, the same day as our Deltarune. But we don't want to say much else other than that. However, I will say that we do have a Discord now if you want to join that, so you can know exactly when we post and exactly when we stream. And if you liked some of the music in this episode of Fluffbits in particular, Our new end card music is from Tony Leese. And a number of the songs in this video came from a YouTuber and musician, Alex Rowe, who does a lot of video game remixes and has some excellent Bloodborne ones. You should totally check him out. And if you're wondering about the art for any of our Sonas, the wonderful WutaTumaki did the art for my Sona and anyone that looks like this. We call them Sona Bites. And the artist for Drizzlebyte Sona is Little Paws Leo. All art in this episode has links in the oopsie daisy. Just like how communism works, this video wouldn't exist without the wonderful work of so many Bloodborne theory analysts, as well as many other YouTubers and artists. So, thank you everyone in the Bloodborne community for inspiring us to give our own take on things. This kind of started out as a joke video, but it turned out to be so much more. I mean, if we were going to take out all the H-play stuff, it would basically just be the doll wanted you to be a great one the entire time. Still very valid. Well, that's it for this fluff. Hope you're surviving okay in these harsh times. Take care of yourselves, and see you in the next one. The little hunter fought bravely, Uwu. You've been spared from a horrible fate. Many very valid takes do mention that this slimy squid crab. Many very valid takes mention that the slimy skip crab. Elderly mentally regress or elderly bimbified are both valid reads.